Hi everyone, my name is Patricia Martucci and I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist in New York, New Jersey, and California. And today I'm here to talk about what it means to practice from a humanistic existential psychology lens. So I have a little story to tell about my own experience that I think will lead to an understanding of what brought me to study from this perspective. In my own life, when I was about 16 years old, my mom brought me to a therapist, and I was struggling at the time with a pretty severe eating disorder. And the therapist I sat down, and I'll always remember this, across from her, and she, didn't really get to know me so much. And she just basically said to me, "So why do you think do this?" And she was referring to my behaviors. And I was this 16-year-old disgruntled teenager who had already been through just a lot in my young life, and was in a position where, I was angry, shut down, didn't really trust adults. And I, sat there probably with my arms crossed and not really willing to talk to her or open up. And, I thought that was the only session, but my mom told me later on that I ended up seeing her for a while, and she brought me every week. And I can't imagine that I did much more than sit there with my arms crossed. So fast forward, when I was in my early 20s and I was ready to help myself, I ended up finding my own pathway to healing through some professionals that had a completely different way of practicing. And many of them identified their own experiences and, their own struggles with mental health. And not that that's, that they sat there and talked about themselves, but, there was that awareness that they also had gone through stuff in their life that, they had come to the other end of. And that was mind blowing for me, because up until that point, really what I knew of adults was like, you don't talk about your own struggles, especially, parents and people in positions of authority, that it was more like, I know your answers, I have them, you come to me for them. And, and that to me always sort of created a rift between us, me and whoever that person was. And just space, and not really the connection that I think is so important in a healing relationship. So part of what I decided to do in my practice, and I couldn't imagine it any other way, was to go to a school that was actually recommended to by my own therapist at the time, that was of the humanistic existential orientation lens. And and that school actually really helped me to create a foundation. And so just to talk a little bit about what that even means. So humanistic psychology really means to practice from this place where there's not a power differential, that everything that happens is believed to be part of just your human experience, and, kind of building self-awareness, knowing and understanding yourself, understanding your story, also, really growth focused, focusing on, like how can we understand ourselves, gain self-awareness, and, move through life from an empowered way based on, self-determination and knowing oneself. And really having that self-compassion that comes when we've taken time to really understand and know ourselves and our stories. I think we really develop a deeper sense of love and compassion for ourselves when we understand, that our behaviors are really a symptom of where we've come from, where we've been, and they make sense, in the realm of our story, and they might not make sense to other people. And I think what can be really difficult is if we separate, that from a person's story. So for example, I think pure humanistic existential psychology doesn't actually believe in diagnosing. Because I'm licensed in 3 states, I did learn how to diagnose in school, and I had to for my licensing exams, and I do that. And some people find it helpful because they find that there's, other people that struggle with the same thing, and there's a set of, symptoms that have been given a name. So sometimes they feel a little bit less, unique. in a way where they're like, okay, I'm glad to know that this is what I have. Other people having that label can be really problematic, and that label can actually hold them back in life, or help, lead to them feeling really just like pathologized, or have this stigma attached to them. So I don't really think that it's necessarily the most important thing to get that. I do have to practice with insurance companies, with diagnosing, because insurance companies ask for that. So I do that with my clients who are using their insurance to help them pay for therapy. So there's an expression that says, there's that, I love that. Actually, I think it was my therapist who said that about, we can't see the tape on our back, and I've heard it said in a different way, like we can't see the label from inside the bottle. And so, in a helping, healing relationship, it's really an opportunity to, have somebody that's not in your life, that is outside of you, and that can maybe have a different kind of viewpoint on what you're going through, really provide that feedback, and sort of hold up the mirror and help us to see the things that we're blind to seeing, because we are human and we can't see ourselves, in the same way. We can't see all of ourselves, and that's why we need humans, and we have that interconnectedness. We need other people, and we all live in relationship to others. So that's really, part of how I see the humanistic existential lens and foundation coming into play. I also build upon I build upon humanistic existential foundations with a lot of other modalities. Like I integrate oftentimes some DBT or CBT if it feels helpful, coping skills. I'm also a certified EMDR therapist and a somatic experiencing practitioner, as well as a registered yoga teacher and a practicing Reiki master. And also I love doing mindfulness-based stress reduction techniques, and I'm also trained in that, amongst many other areas, including IFS, parts work, and the list goes on and on. A nonviolent communication, which I love, NVC, and I do work with families and couples as well. So there's a really, I think when we're working from this place, it really is just a starting point in a way that we are in the room. I heard it said one time at a program I was working at called, I wouldn't say the program, but they, would look at it through the lens of we're humans first, we're therapists second. And I do believe that, at the end of the day, I feel like to have that authentic connection with another human being can be incredibly healing. When I'm just, yes, I'm in a supportive role, but I'm not the master of, knowledge, and I don't know more than my client knows about them. They know more about themselves than I do, and it's my goal to help them find those answers inside of themselves and to gain that understanding, through supportive questioning and, just really creating a safe space for my clients to be able to tell their story and really get to know themselves and really take that time for themselves, to really dedicate, oftentimes it's an hour a week, really just to know ourselves. And we can get so disconnected from ourselves in this busy world. And, also I think we can get really disconnected from our intuition, especially with eating disorders, addiction, and other mental health conditions, including OCD. We really lose touch a lot of the time with our bodies, with our intuition, and that internal wisdom that we have. So some of the work we do is really connecting, kind of bridging. I support clients in bridging back to themselves, creating that pathway really back to themselves. And I don't consider myself, expert, or like the medical model considers, like, doctor patient. It's really just more so two human beings speaking to each other, and I can see their life a little more clearly than them in certain areas because they're them, just like there's certain people that can see me and have a different viewpoint on me because they're not me. And so that's a bit of a nutshell. And one other thing I'll share is that when I'm getting to know a client, I know a lot of the time people do these really elaborate biopsychosocials, and I used to do that too when I worked in agencies or treatment centers. But in the authentic humanistic model, there's not, a rapid firing of questions to get to know somebody. It's really that we get to know our clients in a consistent, authentic way over time as things reveal themselves, and so that's also another part of this. I mean, people do sometimes come in crisis, and we have to, sort of work from that perspective. I always let my clients lead. I think that's really important. And know that they're here for themselves, and I'm a support in whatever way that I can be, in whatever way that they need me to be. So, so if you have any other thoughts or questions, I would love to hear them in the comments, and I hope that this was helpful. Thank you.